So today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on what I call the Comfort Mirage, the invisible financial snare that keeps the middle class running and going nowhere. And more importantly, I'm going to show you 3 very specific moves. One that puts thousands back in your pocket immediately, one that takes 10 minutes to set up, and one that could let you retire years earlier than you think. Now, I should warn you, some of this is going to probably sting, but it's better that you hear it from me now than figure it out at like 62 when it's too late. So, what is the Comfort Mirage? So, there was this couple, right? Lovely people who came to see me a few years back. They had a combined income of about £130,000, right? Detached big house, 2 or 3 cars on finance, kids in swimming and played rugby, annual holiday to the Algarve every year. On paper, living the dream. But when you actually sat down and looked at the numbers, they had £4,000 in savings total. That's it. After years of earning like 6 figures between them, they had less saved than some of my clients that are on like 30 grand and just starting out their journey. The husband of the couple was a properly smart guy. I remember him sitting there and just saying, I just don't understand, like, where does it all go? Well, I'll tell you where it all goes. It just flows straight through you. A big salary comes in, gets hammered by tax, and flows back out again in service of debt and lifestyle. You're not building wealth. It's just a pipe, a flow through. That is the Comfort Mirage. You can afford the monthly payments on everything, so you kind of feel wealthy. But affording payments and being wealthy are completely different things, and that is the gap. That is the gap where the trap lives, okay? Now, the couple that I told you about, they assumed that spending was their problem. That if they just like budget harder, they'd be fine. But here's what I had to show them. Even if you nail your spending, the system itself is working against you. Right now, the UK government is running a stealth tax masterclass, right? The higher rate of tax threshold was frozen at £50,270 and has been since 2022. And it's staying frozen until 2028. And the government has already legislated to extend that until 2031, I think. Yeah, 2031. Now, think about what that actually means, okay? 10 years ago, £50,000 made you a high earner. Today, a mid-level manager earns that and it's just normal, right? Because the tax bands haven't increased or moved with inflation. So every pound over £50,270 gets hit by 40% income tax. Plus, of course, 2% national insurance. That is 42p gone for every pound that you earn. Now think about what that actually means, because I think sometimes we're all very guilty of just seeing that information thinking, oh, that's really bad. But actually think about what that means. Let's say you stay late on a Friday, right? And you grind out an extra 500 quid this month. And £210 of it vanishes before it even hits your account. That's, to me, that's not a tax system. That's a magic trick that steals your watch off of your wrist. You've seen those magicians, right? You're running on this treadmill, but you're barely moving forward. Now, listen, that's all fine. But this next bit is the one that properly winds me up, especially if you've got kids. I've got a 7-month-old daughter. This is something that has become way more real for me over the last year of my life. So, the high income child benefit charge. If you earn over 60 grand, you start losing your child benefits, right? By the time that you hit 70 grand, with 2 or 3 kids, your effective marginal rate that you pay on your tax can push you well past 60%. It's kind of a really misunderstood tax. It's a little bit like the 100,000 bit where you start losing your personal allowance. But the marginal rate of tax basically in this zone can push past 60%. Let me say that again, 60%. You work harder, you land another big bonus. Let's say it's a $5,000 bonus. What you actually take home as a result of that is a fraction of it. I was explaining this to my partner the other night, all the tax traps, all the clawbacks, all the hidden charges. And after 10 minutes of me chatting to her, she was obviously delighted by that. She goes, so let me get this right. The government basically punishes you for earning more and having children, right? And do you know what? That hit me badly because do you know what? That summarized it up better than I could have done in the last couple of years or so. And that's exactly what they're doing. So if that's happening to you, if you ever looked at your pay slip after a pay rise and thought like, where does it all go? Just drop a comment because I want to know that you're not you're not alone. Everyone else is in this squeezed trap. And I want to know how many of you have been hit by this because it's brutal. And the infuriating part is that there's a legal way to claw most of this back. And I'm going to show you how. But first, what you need to understand is the next layer of this trap because it's the one that sneaks up on you the most. So the tax system is actively taking your money, right? And that's bad. We all agree to a certain degree, right? But at least it's kind of honest about it. You know, the numbers are there. It doesn't lie necessarily. What I'm about to show you isn't. And I keep coming back to this one because it's an interesting one. The financial system, with all of these things that we do, has kind of what I call default settings. And I think they're designed to keep you poor and in particular, make you feel safe and feel like you're moving forward, particularly when it comes to things like retirement and savings. So the guy who trained me all those years ago, the proper old school advisor, he told me something when a certain set of legislation comes in around auto-enrollment and pensions came in at the time. He told me something that I've never forgotten, and I think it summarizes it really well. He goes, Josh, auto-enrollment, so again, that's where you sort of automatically put into your workplace pension so you start contributing. He said, auto-enrollment doesn't give you a pension. It gives you permission to stop thinking about a pension. And I was like, Jesus, I think he's right. And when you look at the numbers, he was dead right. The government mandates 8% of your salary is contributed to your pension. 5 from you and 3 from your employer. Now, people see that happening and they say, oh, I'm part of my workplace pension. They see all the contributions going in and they think, sorted, my retirement is handled. It is not even close. For example, let's say that you've got a £60,000 salary over your career and you're contributing at that 8% level. That might reasonably generate a pot that could generate you £12,000, £13,000 a year for retirement. The average household spends £35,000 in retirement, let alone factoring in inflation and lifestyle and all of those other things. This is a poverty trap dressed up like a security and safety net. Then the next part of the trap is that we have a property obsession in this country. Every spare penny goes into extending the kitchen, overpaying the mortgage, adding to the garden office. And look, don't get me wrong, owning your home outright is brilliant. I'm not knocking that at all. You know, it's something that we should all aspire to. But here's a trade-off that not many people will mention. I sat down recently with a bloke who had like £400,000 of equity in his house, but he had 1,100 quid in his current house, in his current account. And I'm like, mate, your kitchen extension is beautiful, right? But it can't pay for your daughter's university. You can't buy groceries with your kitchen island. If 90% of your wealth is locked inside your house, in the bricks and sticks of your property, well, all you are is asset rich, cash poor. You're still trapped. You're just in a nicer cage. So you've got tax squeezing you from above. You've got the default settings luring you in and lulling you into a false sense of security. And then you've got property tying everything up that you've actually built. That is the middle class trap. But the question that you're really asking yourself, or my God, you should be asking yourself, is how do I get out? Now, this is something that I bang on about all the time, and you'll see this in my other videos. This is the most powerful tool that you have. I don't care what anyone else says, okay? This is the most underused and powerful tool that you have. Not just to not make the mistakes that middle class are doing, but actually to build wealth. And it frustrates me how few people actually know about it. So, imagine you earn £75,000 and you've got 2 kids, let's say, whatever. You can have 1 kid, doesn't really matter. You are getting crushed by the £40,000 tax bracket. 40% tax bracket over 50,270, and the child benefit clawback. Thousands of pounds a year are just evaporating. But what if you could redirect £15,000 of your salary before tax straight into your pension? Well, because pension contributions are a taxable income reducer, so they theoretically reduce the amount of earnings you have of which you pay tax on, your taxable income drops to £60,000. Now, by doing that, you fall out of the child benefit trap completely. You dodge the 40% tax on £15,000. Now, stay with me here, because this is where it starts getting good. Your employer will also throw in there too, straight into your pot. And when you add all of that up, £6,000 saved in income tax, £2,500 saved in child benefit. Your employer chucking in national insurance savings as well. That is over £10,000 of value from 15 grand of salary. An effective return of over 60%. No risk, no clever investing, just understanding how the system works. And by the way, just very quickly on this, because I have to mention this every single time, there's talk of this being capped, the salary sacrifice system, from 2029. So this is not a window that's going to be potentially open forever. So, if you're not on board with this, this is probably a good time. So try and use this before it all changes, okay? I'll do a little bit more about salary sacrifice changes probably on the channel. Subscribe to stay up to date with that so you don't miss it. Now, I worked with this guy once who was like a project manager, I think. He was on about £72,000. He had 2 kids under 10. He was losing, in this scenario, exactly what we talked about, £3,000 a year of child benefit clawbacks, and didn't even know at the time. And I ran that exact exercise with him. We restructured his salary sacrifice, dropped his taxable income to below 60,000, and within a month, he's basically, the net result of all of that is he'd basically given himself a massive pay rise. And I remember him sat there thinking, like, why didn't anyone tell me this, and why isn't everyone kind of doing this? And honestly, that question, it just keeps me up at night. So that's why I'm doing this video partially, but also I just want you to focus on that being such an effective impact on all of this sort of stuff. And I hear it almost every week. But I've learned something in my time. Solving the tax problem isn't enough, okay? I have sat across from hundreds of people, and nearly every one of them makes the same mistake. They spend first and invest whatever's left, which, of course, is usually nothing. The 8% who actually escape the trap, they do it backwards. They invest first and spend whatever's left. The method is dead simple. I call it the anti-budget. You work out what you need to be investing each month and then set the direct debits on payday. The money leaves your account before you see it. Then you spend the rest however you like. That's the key point. No guilt, no spreadsheets. And here's the key shift though. If you can't afford your lifestyle after your investments have been funded, you can't afford that lifestyle. Sorry to say. The 92% spend first. The 8%, they invest first. Now, be honest with yourself for a second. Which are you right now? Are you in the spend first or are you in the invest first? I have watched people save thousands of pounds in tax, do everything right, and then finance a brand new car with money that they've saved. They literally use their escape hatch to buy a shinier cage. So look, I am historically terrible with willpower, right? I eat the biscuits if they're in the cupboard, which is exactly why I have to automate every investment contribution that I make, and I do it all without me touching it. I don't trust myself to make the right choice every single month. So I took the choice away, right? I made sure that I didn't have that choice to make. That is the real secret. It's not about discipline. It's about designing a system that doesn't require it. So now you're saving tax and you're investing automatically. Brilliant. But this might get you. Most people in this position still can't retire when they want to. And it's because of where the money is sitting. You've already seen how we talked about how property locks your wealth away, but there is a second lock, your pension. I will sit here and say how amazing a pension is every day of the week. But the reality is that you can't touch it until you're 55, soon to be very soon 57. So if you lose your job or you hate your boss or you want to retire at 45, a pension is a wonderful vehicle, but you're kind of limited, right? The fix is to build what I call a liquid fortress. And the best tool for this is your stocks and shares ISA. You have got a £20,000 a year ISA allowance every single year. Inside of your ISA, whatever goes inside of your ISA, whatever investment you put into that, grows completely free of income tax, dividend tax, capital gains tax. There is still a very, very small amount of tax in the mix in terms of withholding tax and things like that sometimes, but generally speaking, completely free of tax. And yet, millions of people waste this allowance every year. And by the way, what I'm about to tell you connects with a very specific number that I'm going to mention at the end. And it's one that tells you when you can stop saving hard. So just stay with me and I'll show you what I mean. Now, my own ISA is the thing that lets me sleep at night, okay? It's not necessarily my pension. It's certainly not my house, because if my boss made my life miserable tomorrow, I could check my ISA, see 18 months of expenses sat there and just walk away effectively. Now, stocks and shares ISA, yes, it's designed for a long-term growth. It's designed for investing. But if you've got that safety net there, you've got choices. That's what a £200,000 ISA gives you. Not just retirement funds, but options. The option to take a sabbatical, start a business, retire at 55 rather than 68. That is what real wealth feels like. Not stuff you own, but options that you have. What you actually put inside that ISA, index funds, a robo-advice service, a managed fund, a multi-asset fund, whatever, that depends on you. And I've done lots of other videos on that and you can have a little look at that. But there's no single right answer. But the worst answer is leaving the £20,000 ISA allowance on the table each year. Okay. Now, by the way, save this video if you want to. You want to come back to this salary sacrifice numbers when you're actually sitting down to do this and looking through it. So, right, you've got the playbook. 3 moves that will put you 92% ahead of the people in your position. And do you remember the couple that I told you about at the start? They did all 3 of those things. And the last time I saw them, they had a 6-month emergency fund and a growing ISA. Same house, same cars, but just completely different trajectory. And look, if hopefully this changed how you think about your money, hit the like button. It helps more people in this same position as you find out this sort of stuff. But, and I mean this literally, all 3 fall apart if you don't know one specific number. This is what I was talking about earlier. The specific amount where your investments start doing the heavy lifting and you can take your foot off the gas a little bit. Which is why you should watch this video here next, because most people have no idea this number even exists and it changes everything. So I'm going to break it down exactly and how to calculate it. So give it a click, because without this, you're just guessing. I'll see you there.